chairing the meeting today. We have a special just 15-minute meeting of the Economic and Community Development Committee. Do I have a motion on the previous minutes?
I move the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes are approved from the previous ECD session. We have but one item on the agenda today. The LDO fee change discussion has been postponed to a later date, and Mr. Goldberg is going to speak to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We were originally going to present some information related to the LDO fees and consolidation of fire inspection fees into the LDO fees, but we are going to postpone that to a later date to make sure that we have all the stakeholder input that we require.
I think it's great to have those stakeholders bought in the front end. That's great, Brent. To talk about the Land Bank Authority, a new proposal from the Burke administration, I'm going to bring up Ms. Donna Williams, the amazing chair of the Economic and Community Development Department.
You're the amazing
Administrator.
chair of the, yeah.
Administrator. Donna, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Chair and Council. What I want to share with you all today is something that is a great addition to our efforts to do a number of things in the community. We've been focused on economic development, job creation, the production of affordable housing. And I want to share with you some things about the Land Bank Authority, which many communities are finding to be an excellent resource for getting some of the outcomes that they are desiring for their communities to move forward. So you have before you a few cities, some of which we've been in contact with regarding their use of Land Bank authorities very successfully. And essentially what we want to let you know about tell you is what a land bank authority is, and simply it's a way for us to strategically identify property and quote unquote bank that property for short and long term rewards. So it's not sporadic, it's very strategic, and it's something that really is sorely needed here in the city at the moment. Some of you have been participating with us as we talk about blighted property. So we've done a number of things related to blighted property. Some of your districts have more than others. And many communities are finding that the development of a land bank authority addresses some of the issues related to blight. Did y'all have a question? Oh, okay. Okay. So what can a land bank authority do? And the operative word here is what can a land bank authority do? Different land banks take on various priorities depending upon the needs of their community. But I'm not going to read all these to you. You all can see that. I think some of the more important things is that, as I stated before, we have not, as a government, ever had a strategic approach to identifying property, land banking that property, purchasing or having that property donated such that we can start pulling together critical mass for future development, whether it's for residential use, industrial use, or commercial use, even for green spaces. So a land bank authority allows us the opportunity to do that. It also allows us the ability to dispose of troubled, surplus, or vacant property. So some properties the city owns, really that property is not very valuable to the city or any of our strategic efforts. And so the Land Bank Authority allows us the opportunity to do that. I think one of the really important things is that by virtue of having a Land Bank Authority, the city can act as a proactive entity to get ahead of the market. So you all have seen in many cases around the city where folks will say this particular neighborhood was revitalized this way, or this particular commercial corridor was revitalized, and none of that can happen without the ability of that property being acquired strategically over time. For the most part, those types of acquisitions and those strategies have been done by entities, private entities, rather foundations or corporations, so on and so forth, but have been done so without the advantage of having a land bank authority. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we can do. It also, we'll go down to the next to the last, the third up. We can actually, again, be proactive such that properties that are available within the city. We can look at what's coming, what's happened in the past, and acquire properties to put together something really compelling for future use. And there's some of us here who want to make sure, underlined bold there, that it's understood that the Land Bank Authority has no taxing authority. Okay. Is that what you're going to ask me, Councilman Freeman?
Well,
Councilman Freeman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to ask you that it could, the city, first of all, as a member of the land bank, there would be other entities that would be a part of the land bank. Is that correct?
It's possible. So if you think about the Land Bank Authority as a separate entity, right? So it's not part of city government, so it won't have a staff. You'll see, and we'll talk about that later. But in this case, the city would initiate the formation, the city council, the formation of the authority. But private and public entities can donate property to the authority, and when and if appropriate, purchase property from the authority.
Yeah. The reason I was asking that, it would be nice if the county could be a part, because usually there's a lot of property that the city and county own jointly.
Correct.
And are accumulating it rapidly in some of our neighborhoods and in some commercial areas as well.
Yes, sir. We'll
and
talk about that too.
You're gonna
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's a
Thank you.
very good point.
Yeah.
Okay, and some of this I've gotten ahead of myself and talked about in the interest of time. So why do we need a land bank authority? So in each of your districts, there's probably some property that is available, either because it's for sale. There's property that's owned in conjunction by the city and the county. There's property that's owned by the city. And as we look at trends for development, whether it's an industrial, commercial, residential, we can kind of forecast, I hate to use that word too strongly, but forecast where development could happen or should be happening. And then we can start, the Land Bank Authority can start, that property could be put into the LBA, the Land Bank Authority. We've had quite a time as it relates to affordable housing, and a land bank authority can help with that. You all heard mentioned last week through River City about the pilot for one of the projects that's going on. That's an example where a private entity purchased property, and there are properties around that particular site where other private entities have been holding that property for future development. A land bank authority can do that as well, can begin to take on property in hopes of spurring economic development and neighborhood stabilization. And once you get enough critical mass for it, you move from stabilizing neighborhoods to actually revitalizing neighborhoods. Because private developers really, you guys know this, when they're ready to move, they're ready to move. And so if it takes us 2, 3, 5 years to assemble property, sometimes that opportunity just goes somewhere else. So a land bank authority allows us to be proactive about that. It also helps us with taking the non-productive properties. So these are properties owned by the city and the county. And in some cases, properties owned by private development that the city could, though we haven't in recent years, foreclose on or condemn, and that ownership could change. It also allows us the opportunity to receive property from banks. It's very expensive for banks to hold on to non-performing properties, and it's common for banks to reach out to land bank authorities to see if those authorities have any strategic use for those pieces of property. And if so, banks will transfer the ownership of those properties to LBAs if they're interested in them. Again, it's kind of redundant, but the benefits clearly are to build stronger neighborhoods. So again, if you look at some of the neighborhoods that have been revitalized around the city, the key component to that is to build enough critical mass of property, so enough properties that are together to make it worth financially feasible to begin development. And sometimes those properties take a little while to assemble, but that's the benefit of land banking those properties so that they at the end of the day are viable. And of course, if that happens, it helps with stabilizing neighborhoods that are really at risk because they have a lot of vacant properties. It helps with neighborhood revitalization. So when a neighborhood stabilized, something like a land bank and the strategies that go with it, take that neighborhood from just being a stable neighborhood to really having an opportunity for those neighborhoods to be revitalized through the infusion of private capital from developers, and in some cases infrastructure from the city. And then, let's see, it's a great way to, again, I feel like we're being redundant because I'm talking too much, trying to go fast, but it's a great mechanism for us to assemble parcels for commercial, residential, and industrial properties. Okay, so here's the kind of the technical part of it. I should say that the state of Tennessee enacted legislation to allow land banks. We have, as you saw earlier, states around the country where land banks aren't new. They're commonly used for economic development. So how would we go about forming one here in Chattanooga? And again, you could read that. But the governing body, that would be you guys, would authorize the formation of a land bank authority, and then there would be a board of directors made up of 5 members, and you'll see there how those 5 members would be aligned. We would have, in the case of, this answers your question, Councilman Freeman, city representation, county representation, and a representative from the Chattanooga Housing Authority. Okay. The authority, the land bank authority, has no staff. The support for, administrative support for the LBA would be provided by folks in my shop, in the Economic and Community Development team. Okay. And then the final bullet, the proposed term of the board members would be 3 years, with initial directors accepting staggered terms. Okay. What are our next steps? Okay, the adoption of a resolution to file the charter. So we need permission from this body to file a charter so that City of Chattanooga could actually have a land bank authority. And then at that point, we would be selecting members. We'd be in the city, not ECD, selecting board members. And then at that point, the bylaws, policies, procedures, how and what it will do under state law and how we would like it done in Chattanooga would be identified. And then the creation of a service agreement with the City of Chattanooga to provide administrative support to the Land Bank Authority. Right, so we would have an agreement where City of Chattanooga, which would be by my department in this case, would provide administrative support to the Land Bank Authority.
Donna, I have 2 lights from 2.
Did I go too fast?
No, that was fine. I have 2 esteemed gentlemen up here who have pushed their button. I will remind them before I recognize them. They have 60 seconds each before I promised Chairman Henderson we would start agenda session at 2:30. So if we have big speeches, there are other opportunities for those later today. Councilman Gilbert.
Ms. Williams, I know you said housing and you also said commercial. If the land is not able to be used for either one, are we looking at parks or something of that nature to utilize the land?
The legislation does allow for that. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you.
Councilman Hakeem for the last question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Williams, are you going to provide us with a copy of this?
Yeah, we actually
PowerPoint?
we have a
Okay.
handout for you.
All right. Then in addition to that, the legislation from the state, if you all could email us that legislation, I'd greatly appreciate it prior to us taking any action.
Sure. Thank you. We'll be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any further action by the ECD committee? Without objection, we're adjourned and we'll go into agenda.
Thank you.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Call to order now our February the 10th agenda session. I'd like to motion to approve in a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. So moved. I'd like to commend Councilman Anderson for running an efficient meeting so that we can start the agenda session on time. Madam Clerk, we have a couple of ordinances on final reading. If there are no questions, we'll go to ordinances on first reading. Any questions on final reading from the council? If not, we'll skip down to ordinances on first reading. If you would, in the essence of time, realizing that at 3 o'clock, we do have a public hearing on the Wilcox tunnels. Is there any ordinances on first reading under planning that you have questions about this afternoon? Councilman Anderson.
Chairman, just to clarify, if we do, we can also ask them tonight at the 6 o'clock meeting. Is
That's
that
correct. We will cover these thoroughly at 6 o'clock.
Thank you, Chairman.
We did hear all of these in committee last week, is the reason I'm just asking for questions at the 3 o'clock hour, well, 2:30 hour now. Any questions concerning any of our planning ordinances this afternoon? If not, we will drop down to resolutions. 7A under Economic and Community Development. Madam Clerk. I don't think you're on. Tap it.
Testing.
That's it.
A resolution to make certain findings relating to the UTC 5 LLC project, to delegate certain authority to the Health, Educational, and Housing Facility Board, and to authorize the mayor to enter into and execute an agreement for payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes.
All right, do we have any questions regarding items 7A? Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week, unfortunately, we didn't have the agreement in hand prior to the hearing, so now that I've had a chance to look it over, I did have a few clarifying questions, and I noticed that Ms. White is here in the crowd today. If she wouldn't mind coming up just to clarify, if that's okay with you, Mr.
Ms.
Chairman.
White,
that I
if you
can
would
ask her.
come to the podium, please, ma'am.
Hello.
Kim, how are you?
Great. How are you?
Good. I just had a few clarifying points that I wanted to make sure to get out there. We talked about the percentage of units. We talked about what percentages makes up affordability and those types of things. So I won't go back over all that, but just again, factual. There's 64 units total.
Correct.
Correct. 20%, so 13 units was what we're anticipating being reserved for the affordable, or the $750 a month.
Right.
Is that
Right
correct?
now it's 16.
It's right now it's 16.
Yeah.
Okay. We're actually allowing more than the 20%,
Yes.
which is even better. And those units were the efficiencies, the
Correct.
16 efficiencies, and the amount was $750 a month. Do you know what the amount would be should those not be offered at this rate? For example, if they decided to only do 13, there would be 3 available. Do you have any idea what the rate of those would be naturally?
No, the developers here in Rowe, I don't know if on your pro forma,
They'd be a little bit higher, probably about $795.
So not much difference between
Difference.
what they would normally be.
I think the affordable rate is $770, and we were going to try to offer a little bit lower than that if we
Okay.
could at $750.
Okay, thank you.
You good? You got a follow-up, Councilman?
I'll yield if there's a...
There is one line. Councilman Anderson?
Thank you, Chairman. It's come to my attention today that there's a discrepancy between the city pilot agreement proposed and the county pilot agreement proposed, and that's why you just got 2 documents handed to you detailing those changes. I'd like the city attorney to expound on that.
Mr. Attorney?
Yes, sir. There is, the only change in the 2 documents is in paragraph 4 regarding the way that the county looked at this and the way the city looked at it whenever we were preparing the pilot. The amount of payments, at least in the county version, has it separated out for the land value and the improvements value. You'll see that in the document. And they were concerned about the reference to 27.1%, which is the school portion of the tax being paid throughout the term of this agreement. They have also got it designated out, the actual step up at the end of the pilot. There was a 4-year step up at that point in time, where the first year in 2026, it would be 20%, in 2027, 40%, 2028, 60, 80, and 100 to 2030. And those amounts are all reflected in the document, much like the cities, but there's a little discrepancy between those two sections. If y'all want to go specifically with just one document that the county has proposed at this point, we can do that, but we need to make sure that both the folks that are involved in the pilot are agreeing with that.
Mr. Donald, we have looked at that, and really, it's not a discrepancy in the agreement. It really is more just a clarification about how the taxes are paid. So the agreement is exactly, the terms are the same, but the way that this agreement for the county is really a clarification for them how the school portion is paid.
And as long as y'all are in agreement with those terms, then we can adopt the portion the county has recommended.
Any follow-up? Councilman Grown?
Yes, ma'am. A few years ago, I sat in the audience and had Ms. Madison say that this council needs to really take a serious look at how we're doing pilots, and that we should move to graduated pilots. Yet this pilot is 10 years, and it's not graduated within that 10 years, and then we're extending it 4 years. Why is that? Why are we giving a 100% tax break for this organization for 10 years and then adding an additional 4 years on top of it?
Well, for the last 2 years, we've worked with the city and the Economic and Community Development Group at the city to try to come up with a pilot program. And this is what you all adopted back in October. So after a 2-year, we added the affordability clause to it. We also shrunk the footprint. And so that was really through work that we've been doing for 2 years with City Council and with the city on coming up with a pilot that was workable and actually usable from developers. So we did make some accommodations with this new pilot.
Okay, and in terms of affordability, how many low-income families do you think are going to move into 400 square feet of an efficiency?
And this pilot program is set aside for those making 80% of the median income of Hamilton County or below. It's not a low-income pilot. I think Ms. Williams talked last week about what the city's trying to do to fill different gaps in the city. So this is not a low-income housing development. It is one to try to get workforce housing in the city. And she just went through the land bank proposal. So we're working with the city on how do we get enough diversity throughout the city.
Well, I understand that. I cannot vote for this tonight. I do not think it is a good use of taxpayer dollars to give this type of taxpayer refund to a business and then claim that we're actually doing anything about low-income housing in the inner city. Thank you very much.
Can I make one comment on one good thing about the housing pilot is the city's not giving up anything today. The developer's paying full taxes for the city and the county, what you're getting today, and also paying the full school portion too. What we're doing is we're freezing the taxes for a period of time so the developer can actually cash flow to get rental income, rental housing up. But the city's getting exactly what they're getting today and will so for the 10 years.
All right.
Thank you
very
for that
much.
clarification.
All right. If there's no further questions, Councilman Smith, you have a follow-up. Okay.
Yes, I do. Kim, I understand what you're saying about it being a free. It's not that the city is putting in city money into it. We are just doing a freeze. There's being significant investment being made in our community to put this into place.
Yes.
Part of my concern is I've got a couple. One, I know we're using median, and I know that's the way to do it, and I know it's over the entire county, which comes up to 30. Well, the 80% of it is 31,000,
Right.
if I'm not mistaken. Whereas the AMI for a black household is only 27,000. That's before the 80%. So part of my concern is that we're not really looking at this to service our entire community or even an exact duplication per ratio of our community. It seems that we're servicing one particular portion, and that's just a concern of mine when we're trying to, I know you said workforce development, but where we're really desperate in affordable housing and things that we're trying to do for our residents, there's a big segment there that I'm not quite sure could reach. And I know they would be available because that's our max. It's not the minimum, so they would still be able to apply for it. But those are some of the numbers I'm concerned with as far as that goes. And that was just a statement, not necessarily a question. The other part of it is, based on what I just heard, we're talking about a $50 a month difference in rent potentially between what it would normally be, less than 50, what it would normally be as opposed to what we're asking it to be as part of this pilot. That's about $9,600 for all units per year, totaling over the course of the entire pilot about $134,000. Yet the total cost, providing it be done anyways without the pilot, is $886. So there's over a $700,000 difference in what we would be forgiving or not collecting to what the discount we're actually receiving on those individual units would be. So from that regard, and again, I understand this is also to help try to encourage development to do it, but that's really a significant difference for me in seeing what the benefit is. And the wording of the pilot itself is that we're providing this pilot for substantial public welfare benefit. And $50 a month to me seems like a stretch to call it substantial public welfare benefit. So I just want to make sure that not only, is this something that we're doing that is providing that as a pilot should, but we're also making sure that our entire community and every segment within that community of all different income levels can take advantage of where the city is putting taxpayer dollars to help subsidize some of this development.
Sure, I absolutely understand that concern. I do want to have a point of clarification, though. The question was asked of Mr. Elam what the difference would be if there wasn't a pilot, just on that efficiency, not what his pro forma would look like if you couldn't get the pilot. I do know that this has been a very difficult project to even bring this far, and it would have been easy to do student-based housing with 4 units and shared services, and they cash flow a lot more. But because of this pilot, he was able to put together a pro forma that actually provides workforce housing, not student housing. So I think the question would be, could you do this project without a pilot? And the answer I would tell you is no. He couldn't do it without a pilot. And that's why the property has been sitting there the way it has. And he tried to work with the neighborhood on making sure it's a great project for the neighborhood. So, I think that really is a clarification, is that his whole pro forma would totally change.
And thank you for that clarification. I didn't explain that part of it as well as I probably should have. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, before I call on Councilman Anderson, who has his light on, let me remind the council, we do have a Public Works committee scheduled for immediately following agenda session, and then at 3 we do have the Wilcox Tunnel public hearing. So we can discuss this further at 6 if need be. Councilman Anderson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be brief and reserve the right to speak again at 6. I feel a little bit of sympathy for this applicant. This council passed, and not by a 5-4 margin, the framework for this housing pilot last October. And we can pull up those numbers if we need to before 6, but now we're questioning the things that we didn't question back in October. Perhaps $50 a month wouldn't make a big difference to a lot of people, but fellow council members and chairman, I represent people for whom $50 a month makes the difference in whether or not they can pay rent and whether or not they can afford to live close to home. I'll close with, no one project is going to solve all the housing needs in Chattanooga, but this is a great start. And I know that we're going to see about 4 more varying levels of income projects in the next few months. And I'm looking forward to seeing all of those work together to solve the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Madam Clerk, if you would.
Thank you.
Kim.
Thank you.
Chairman, did you see my light?
No, sir, it's not working. You may have the floor, sir.
So since it's not working now, I imagine it's not going to work the rest of the day. So what should I do when I want to?
Just, how about raising your hand and wave at me?
Will that work?
That'll work.
There are other economic factors too that when we start talking about a pilot that we obviously don't put into the scope of the pilot itself. One of those is that we will get more bodies downtown, and the more bodies we get downtown, the more economic development and generation that will take place.
Correct.
The more rooftops, the more businesses. And one of the things that we haven't had is any drivers to bring people to town and any place for them to stay when they come. So can we put $1 on that per 100 people? How do we do that? Because that's a significant amount of money over and beyond what goes in accrue to a tenant in an apartment complex. The ultimate goal is to benefit the community at large, and particularly the city, because the more people we get to live downtown, the more taxes that come in. The more taxes that come in, the least likely we are to have to raise taxes on the poor homeowners, senior citizens, and others that we are faced with now. So this is one of the ways to relieve the pressure on raising taxes, is to increase the number of people who are contributing downtown, who are paying more sales taxes, who help us generate more things, who are using our Carter transportation system, which would allow us to expand transportation, on and on and on and on. There's an equivalent dollar amount out there that we probably can't get at now, but we always need to take that into consideration as we go down the road in developing pilots.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. White.
Thank you very much.
All right, Madam Clerk, if you would, 7B, please.
A resolution authorizing the appointment of Amber Clark as a special police officer unarmed for the McCamey Animal Center to do special duty as prescribed herein, subject to certain conditions.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions on 7B? I see no lights. 7C, please.
A resolution to confirm the mayor's appointment of Tim Kelly to the stadium board.
I see no lights. 7D.
A resolution to confirm the mayor's appointments of Warren Barnett and Dr. Paul Kahn, and reappointment of Dan Jacobson to the Airport Authority.
All right. 7E, please.
A resolution authorizing the chief of police to apply for and, if awarded, accept a grant from Aegis Foundation to purchase body-worn cameras for permanent and long-term testing of equipment and developing policy and procedures for use in the amount of $12,500.
Would you read that last the amount again? Oh, okay. I thought she said something else.
I have $12,500.
Okay, that's what I have. Any questions on 7E? 7, I guess that's supposed to be F, but I've got L down here. Have you got 7? You got 7L? Okay. Okay. We'll cover that under that committee. 7L, please, under Youth and Family Development.
A resolution authorizing a blanket acceptance for donations by the Department of Youth and Family Development under $10,000, which can be accepted without council approval, but will be reported to council on a monthly basis.
Any questions on 7L? 7M, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Youth and Family Development to accept donations on the attached list from April 2013 through January 2015 for the total donation amount of $37,381.45.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Any questions on 7M? All right, if not, if there's no other business to come before the council during the agenda session, we'll adjourn and go into Public Works and Transportation Committee.
All right, we'll call to order our Public Works and Transportation Committee meeting. Have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed is nay. So ordered. Thank you very much. Mr. Bailey, how are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you, Mr. Chairman?
Doing good, thank you. Let's see, we have.
I have
First one is 5C, an ordinance.
I do have a slideshow. I thought I'd give you a little warm-up. You had asked for a follow-up from our conversation last
Great,
week.
perfect, okay. Yeah, I was going to do that at the end, but let's do it now, that'd be great.
Okay, sure.
No, that'd be great, thank you.
The council had asked last week, and of course, you all know that paving is as much a priority for our department and Mayor Burke as it is to the members of the council. We do have a current yearly requirements contractor with Wright Brothers that is a 365-day contract. They have completed as of the end of October, when we asked them to stop work because we didn't want them paving in weather that was too cold, most of the projects that are on our fiscal year 14 paving list. You can see the lists on the screen. The work that has not been done, one of which, Workman Road, we're trying to coordinate with the sidewalk project to supplement some work that we've already done over there. So there was a reason to take a little more time and make sure that coordination was done. And we did get ourselves behind on this contractor, but we will get started on Shallowford Road and West 33rd Street as soon as the weather is warm. The next year's paving contract, and keep in mind that our paving typically is a year behind. We're making efforts internally in our department to get caught up with that so we don't get into this position in the future. And for our fiscal year 15 paving, we're committed to a schedule that's about 6 months faster, 4 or 5 months faster than what we did last year. We're working right now internally on evaluating all of the projects in the city, and as you all know, every single section of street in our city is graded with a quantitative paving condition index, and we start with that as the base level to determine the needs of the city, which far outweigh, unfortunately, the funding. So we've got to start with a basic assumption of what are the needs of our paving, and then we evaluate internally with utilities. We don't want to pave a street that's going to be cut up a month or two later for a development, so we try to make sure that it's not just paving condition, but also other factors, and we're working on that right now in our department. We're committed to a bidding window of March 27th to April 17th, and contract signed by May 1st, which would be, let me do the math, that's 4 months faster than last season. And what that does for us is a couple of things. Number one, it doesn't put us behind the 8 ball, and it gives us plenty of time to do all of the projects before winter hits. But number two, and perhaps more importantly, it gives us the opportunity to work heavily with the Public Works Department so that we can supplement the work of the contractor with the work of some of our crews and stretch our dollars farther. So May 1st is when we expect to have a contract with our new paving contractor, and we'll get to work in the summer on our paving list from fiscal year 15.
Thank you, sir. Does anybody have questions on this presentation for Mr. Bailey? I see none. If we can just move on to 5C. Thank you very much, by the way, for that update.
You're very
I
welcome,
appreciate it.
sir. The first item is a right-of-way abandonment that was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. This is final reading. There is a condition that was part of the approval that requires that half of this right-of-way remain open so that we can access some of the other parcels that are along the way there. We felt like this was an appropriate abandonment.
Would you announce to the folks that there's some seating over here?
Yeah, okay. I see no questions. Just one moment, though. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Councilman Freeman. Not used to your light not working. Yes, sir.
Right, I normally don't see anything here, but a portion of this alley is already open. Is it used?
I think the alley is not used for driveway access currently, but that was the gist of the original request. And some of the nearby property owners, not the applicants, were concerned about future access to their property. And so the suggestion was made during the course of communicating about it in Planning Commission to just split it down the middle. That way you can retain some access for the other properties and also provide the applicant what it is that they want.
Okay. The other thing is no utility. Is there any utility easements on that one?
Good question,
Got a
Mr. Councilman.
condition for that, yes.
It is.
It has Electric Power Board as utility
sir.
easement.
Councilman Mitchell?
Withdraw.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Before we move on, ladies and gentlemen that are standing in the back, there are a few seats spread throughout this area in this section of the chambers if you would like to sit down. All right. Mr. Bailey, I believe 7I is next, please.
7I is a long-awaited
J.
multi-use path to extend along Highway 58 from Jersey Pike on the north to Webb Road on the south. This project was part of a planning process from a plan ago with the Transportation Planning Organization and is included on the Transportation Improvement Plan, which we typically call the TIP. That means that it's gone through a fairly significant planning process and is eligible for grant funding. The project is also being supplemented with collaboration from the Public Works Department with some water quality funding, as well as some Enterprise South funding, primarily for some stormwater enhancements along the way. We're asking that we initiate a contract with, go ahead and initiate a contract with Wilson Construction.
I see no lights, but I did have one question just to clarify and get out. The amount that we're talking about here, this is something that's been ongoing for quite a while, as you mentioned. It's my understanding that the dollar amount that we're talking about was actually allocated back in 2011. Is that correct, or can you confirm?
I don't know if that's the exact right year, Mr. Chairman, but these funds have been allocated for many years, 2011, 2012, in response to this project going through the transportation planning process.
Okay. Thank you. I see no further questions on that item. 7J, please.
Thank you. A very similar project, also on the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Plan, also planned through the TPO, streetscape enhancements that also supplement some bike facilities that were recently put in on Rossville Boulevard. This is to go to contract. We did get some economies of scale with this contractor to do this work as well. This is also Wilson Construction Company. We're asking to go to contract with them.
Okay. No questions on this item? Next.
There's no pretty image here because this is a basic kind of first step. As you all remember, you resolved to let us enter into an agreement with a Tiger grant process, and we're awarded a Tiger grant for the a planning study for the implementation and feasibility of passenger rail in the city. That process begins with an official agreement with the Federal Transit Authority, the FTA. The FTA also requires that we work through an official grantee, and the City of Chattanooga Department of Transportation is not an official grantee with the FTA, but CARTA is, and as a partner with us, they've agreed to work with us on this. We will be managing this process, but CARTA will be the official grantee. So this request is for going into agreement with both CARTA for that purpose as well as the initial agreement with the FTA.
All right. Any questions on this item? I see none. I believe that's it for this week, transportation, and then we've got a couple for next week. Starting with 6A, please. Or it might be B on yours.
6A, also a right-of-way abandonment that has gone through Planning Commission. This is a steep grade that's not feasible to be used for any other purpose. Adjacent property owners didn't object. We saw no reason to go against the Planning Commission's recommendation, which was to approve the abandonment.
All right. See no questions. Next.
Also an abandonment, and let me clarify a little bit here. Apologies for some confusion. 4th Street apparently is an unknown historic name for the alley that extends up through Wisdom Street and goes back behind this property. But the request is to abandon that L-shaped right-of-way there that you can see in this image. And there's another image that shows the adjacent property owners. Chattanooga Gas is surrounding this right-of-way and is hoping to consolidate their property. The Planning Commission recommended for approval, and we saw no reason to object to that.
All right. Any questions on this item? Seeing none?
Item 7D is a request to authorize temporary use for Mark Baldwin for use of the sidewalk in front of 100 Market Street to install a rail and put tables and chairs within the alignment as shown on the attached photo. This is the business that may or may not still be the place where you can rent a stand-up paddleboard there at the intersection of First and Market Street, real near the aquarium addition at the base of the Market Street Bridge.
Okay. Seeing no questions on that item. 7F.
And 7F, also a temporary use to install aluminum canopies on the, oops, I think there's a, well, it's a little hard to see. Oh, go back. It's a little hard to see. The red is not what this application is for. It's the blue. There's two little temporary use boxes on the street side, the Martin Luther King Boulevard side of this building, where the applicant is proposing to attach some awnings to the face of the building.
Any questions on this item? None? That's it for one second. Councilman Anderson.
Yeah, just to clarify on the slide that says item E, we might want to change it. It's actually item F on the agenda, 7F.
My apologies.
Yeah, they were all off by one. I think we added one in the middle or something. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bailey. I believe that's all for transportation.
You're very welcome.
For this body, just a moment, Mr. Norris. Since we do have a meeting scheduled and the community is here expecting to have that session, I would like to start it on time. If this body does not object, can we just complete our public works items following our public hearing? Is that acceptable? Thank you. Then I would like to adjourn this section of this committee and turn it over for our public hearing. Councilman.
Could you see if some of the city employees would move back to the staff seating, so there are more seating for people in the back?
Ladies and gentlemen, staff persons, if you don't mind, if you're not going to be a presenter, the section in the very back where staff normally sits, if we could ask you to move back there so that citizens can have some of these seats right up front here. Yes, ma'am. We do have some seats on this side, if you'd please come. And while we are afforded citizens an opportunity to have a seat, please come right on in, come around here. I want to express appreciation on behalf of the Chattanooga City Council for all of our citizens coming out today to participate in this public hearing on the Wilcox tunnels. And we have a few housekeeping items that we'd like to express to you. One is that the double doors here, they lock from the outside, so you can go out those doors, but if you're going to come back in, you have to come in the rear door. We ask you, if you would please, if you have cell phones, to please put them on mute or turn them off. We'd greatly appreciate that. And if, I don't know if there's any media who wants to get a front view of our panelists when they come up, but in talking with the chairman, you would be able to stand, in front of our podium up here to take some pictures if you were so inclined. If you would, please let me outline the process and the procedure we'll have today. We're going to first have a panel from the community. And that panel, each person will have approximately 5 minutes to share their interests, their concerns in this process. After which, if the council is so inclined, there will be questions by council persons to the panelists. we will follow the same process with a second panel of internal experts that we have, and that is how we will proceed. Now, I'm going to ask Pastor Johnson. I know I'm Council Chair Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify, we're going to go ahead and establish a length for this hearing as far as the timeline, or a length of time.
The timeline that has been established, to my knowledge, is from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m.
3 to 5, okay.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. And then and then as each panel raises or talks, we're to hold our questions until the end of each panel, is that correct?
We would ask that. Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you.
We were saying that after the panelists have made their presentations, all of them, on that panel, then council persons, if you're so inclined, would ask questions. Thank you very much on that, sir. And we're going to ask Pastor Johnson, if you would please open us up with a word of prayer.
Let's pray. Our Father and our God, we acknowledge you as the giver and the creator and the sustainer of all life. We ask now your blessings upon our gathering, that you would give to us what we need for such a time as this. We pray for guidance. We pray for direction. We pray that you would continue to hold us in the hollow of thine hand, that you would be in the midst of us and direct us and show it what it is you would have us to do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much, sir. We're going to ask our first panel, if you would please come up to the table. And let's make sure that all of their mics are working and they know how to operate them. Pastor, come right up. Yes, first panel. I saw Mr. Taylor. John Taylor? Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Srini. You'll have a mic there very soon, Mr. Taylor. And I guess to help make sure that our mics are working, we're going to ask you if you would please identify yourself and your role in the community, starting with Pastor Johnson.
Okay, I'm Pastor Wayne Johnson of the New Hope Baptist Church.
There's a button that you turn the volume up.
Okay, so, all right.
Go right ahead.
Okay, I'm Pastor Wayne Johnson of New Hope Baptist Church on Wilcox, and you just wanted me to introduce. All right.
Can't hear him? What we're probably going to have to ask you is to speak up a bit. And I believe, Pastor Johnson, you're associated with the Southern Christian Leadership Council.
Okay, now, I'm Pastor Wayne Johnson of New Hope Baptist Church. I'm also chairman of the Servant Leadership Christian Fellowship here in the city. Can everybody hear me?
If you would, yeah, go right ahead. And we would mention, ladies and gentlemen, that these are new. This is a new system. This is the first time it's being used. There may be a bug or two we need to work out. Go right ahead, Pastor.
All right, let me try it again.
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm Pastor Wayne Johnson of New Hope Missionary Baptist Church on Wilcox Boulevard. I also serve as chairman of the Servant Leadership Christian Fellowship Group, and I also serve as one of the chaplains to our city police department.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Mr.
My name is...
You might have to use the same mic.
We'll share it. Good afternoon. My name is John Taylor. I'm with the East 3rd Street Church of Christ, where I serve as minister, but also serve as the owners of Taylor Funeral Home, located on Wilcox Boulevard, just beneath the tunnel.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
My name is Robert Shreen. I'm chairman of North Brandon Community Council. That community group represents about 13 neighborhood associations located in the Eastdale, North Brandon community.
All right, thank you very much. We would mention we do have a few more seats on the opposite end over here if the persons care to come over for seats. We're going to ask our panelists, starting with Pastor Johnson. We'll go down the line to make your comments. As we said, this panel, we're asking you to make your comments in 5 minutes or less.
All right. Again, let me say good afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon, sir.
I come to you today with some concerns concerning the Wilcox Tunnel. As I have the opportunity to talk to many of the members of the congregation in which I have been blessed to serve, I hear many fears and I hear concerns about the Wilcox Tunnel. Concerns about leakage, drainage, narrow lanes, fear of ice breaking through windshields during colder weather, very poor lighting, at times garbage and debris on the inside, dark, dingy interior walls, no room for any kind of error on the part of a driver. That's just to name a few, because the list can go on and on. But one of the members said to me the other day, she said, I use that tunnel on a regular basis, going back and forth to my doctors at Erlanger Medical Center. And I would hate to think, in case of an emergency, a medical emergency, that an ambulance carrying me would have to take another route when every minute would count the most. The unsafe and unhealthy Wilcox Tunnel has caused a shift in the demographics of the people living in the Wilcox Tunnel corridor and surrounding areas. And as a result of this, people that are living in the area have a low or negative expectation of the community, because most of the political leaders are not visible in the community. And as with that being said, they're saying, how can you represent me if you don't know me or know where I live? Even at times during rush hours, many of them will deal with traffic on other streets to avoid going through the tunnel. Studies have found that people that are not satisfied with their neighborhoods were more likely to report emotional health, leading to harmful impact of residents, and also interfere with bonds between residents. So we're here today to say, hear our cry. We need a permanent solution. The Wilcox Tunnel is one of the main avenues in and out of our downtown Chattanooga area. And there are many issues within that tunnel as it stands, including some health issues and water leakage. Pedestrians aren't allowed to utilize the tunnel. The mission of a new tunnel would provide for our city with more safe and more reliable transportation system in a way that would strengthen our economy and also the quality of life. The implementation of a new tunnel is to provide appropriate safety measures and is therefore very vital by limiting structural damage and to ensure compliance with the regulations and the safety requirements for all vehicles. Human response to emergency situations are one of the utmost importance in tunnel safety. And so in closing, the community is calling for fair treatment under Title VI, the Environmental Justice Law. Fair treatment means that no group of people should bear the disproportionate or share in the negative environmental consequences resulting from industrial, governmental or commercial operation policies. And so we say we deserve to be treated fairly as citizens of this great city. And in so doing so, it will bring about social change within the Eastdale, North Brainerd community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pastor. Businessman, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you to all of the council persons. First of all, I'd like to say good afternoon to each and every one of you and appreciate the job that you do on a daily basis. First of all, I just want to talk about the economic impact of that tunnel. Before doing so, let me just speak about the disparity of that particular tunnel, which is Wilcox Tunnel. If we look at our particular city, we have several tunnels. We have the Brainerd Tunnel. We have also the East Ridge Tunnel, as well as the Chickamauga North Chattanooga Tunnel. Each tunnel, every last one of those tunnels have been repaired. Now, I want to make sure we put a footnote there. They are repaired. Just the one in North Chattanooga area, the television, or it was printed in the newspaper as well as on TV, that there was a leak and they wanted to repair that leak before winter got here. They made those improvements. But when I look at Wilcox Tunnel, it is a disparity that is an eyesore for the city of Chattanooga, because that is the only tunnel that is not repaired. That says something to us as a city. It says that we can, and we know that, and has been stated that the state owned the other tunnels, but there have been partnerships in the past between city, county, state, as well as federal in order to make those improvements. And I want us to really, if you have not had the chance of going through that tunnel, go through there. On my way here, I went through the tunnel. Dark, dingy, as Pastor just brought out, unsafe. But when I look at the disparity, it says that this community does not count compared to the other tunnels. And we are here today to let our cry be heard that we do count. We are somebody, and we want to say that we deserve the same treatment as the other tunnels. So that's number one that we want to talk about. Then we want to speak about that particular tunnel as it relates to the impact. Just any time they can close the tunnel. When they close the tunnel, it cuts off one community from another community. Not only does it cut off the community, but it also impedes the progress or the traffic from going from Amnicola Highway even out to East Brainerd, Shallowford Road. That particular tunnel is a major, and I repeat, major thoroughfare. When I look at that tunnel, if that tunnel is closed, it simply says that we have to spend more money to get to the other side of the community. It means that we have to travel a further distance in order to get there. And all of us who have experienced the closure of that tunnel knows that there is a major impact. If we want to improve our communities, the greatest way we can start, the first way we can start, is with that tunnel. Well, what is the first major thing? The first major thing is to fix the tunnel. And I repeat, fix the tunnel, not repair the tunnel. Patch the tunnel. Put makeshift water movement elements to the tunnel. The tunnel has been leaking for more than 25 years. Fix the tunnel. If we can fix the other three, and it just came on TV that there was a leak, I know we can fix this tunnel. Fix the tunnel. Number two, the next thing we look at that we need to make sure that we have, when we look at the economic development, 25 years ago, after moving there at Taylor Funeral Home, spoke with planners of the city. It was on the plan to build another tunnel. That was on the plan when I was on city council. That was the goal. It's supposed to have been done 10 years. This is a major concern. And so it seems as if, and I go off my notes to just say, when we want to fix other things, we can fix it and find the money. But when it comes to our community, we are tax-paying citizens, just like everybody else in every other community. And we're asking for fair treatment. We're not asking for treatment above anybody else, but we are asking for fair treatment that we can access and go through this tunnel. When you look at the impact, the economic impact, if they were to build a second tunnel, as Pastor brought out, there will be opportunities not only to employ a professional company to come in and to build that tunnel, but there will be opportunities for the citizens of that community who could walk in and find jobs there. So this tunnel is valuable. This tunnel is part of the city of Chattanooga. It's part of the county of Chattanooga. It is in the state of Tennessee. It is also in the United States, which makes it a federal tunnel also. And we think that partnering with the city, the county, the state, as well as federal, we can make this thing a reality. I close by saying we don't need a study. We don't need no more studies. Every single day we roll through there, it's a study that is dark, it's dingy, and if we get sick on the other side, it's going to take longer to get to the opposite side. So please hear our cry. We are crying, fix number one, and continue the project of rebuilding a second tunnel there in that community. Thank you so very much, City Council, and we do appreciate you and the job that you do.
Thank you, sir. At this time, we're going to ask Mr. Sreen if you'd make your comments, sir.
Yes, again, my name is Robert Sreen, and I would like to thank Mayor Burke and his administrative staff and members of our city council for providing this opportunity. Also, I'd like to thank those in attendance for taking your time out of your schedule to attend this meeting as well. Please allow me to provide you a brief history of the Wilcox Tunnel for those of you who are not aware. The Wilcox Tunnel was fully constructed in 1932 at the cost of $325,000. The tunnel is approximately 1,300 foot long, 24 foot wide, with a 3-foot interior sidewalk. Presently, the tunnel is over 80 years old, and for the past 35 to 40 years, citizens, some who have departed this life, have asked various city administrators for assistance toward making this tunnel safe for public use. According to the City Transportation Department, between 16,000 to 18,000 vehicles travel this route daily, triple the amount of traffic traveled this route in 1932. In 2005, the Wilcox Tunnel was deemed unsafe to be used by EMS, ambulances, fire trucks, county school buses, and cars, placing unsafe conditions and a hardship on citizens living in this community. Within the same year, the city spent $125,000 to repair leaks, fill cracks, close the pedestrian walk, and prohibit bicycle use. Why? Due to poor ventilation within the tunnel. However, shortly thereafter, some pedestrians decided to take it upon themselves to remove the barricade from the walk and forego the hazard condition today, and walkway is being used, and nothing has been done to improve the poor air quality within the tunnel. Also, the leaks are still present and presents a safety hazard. For over 10 or more years, taxpayers have stood by while thousands and thousands of dollars have been spent for a number of studies to be conducted on the tunnel, and thousands more on piecemeal work, all with no positive outcomes. We have been patient. Water leaks, poor lighting, traffic congestion, poor ventilation, EMS and other emergency vehicles, including public transportation, still are prohibited to travel through this tunnel. Through it all, we have been patient. Over 15 years ago, during the time TDOT was widening Shelford Road toward the tunnel, city officials said they planned to widen Wilcox Boulevard to 4 lanes from Amacola Highway to Shelford Road, which would include the tunnel. It never happened. We have been patient. April 2014, this administration applied for a Tiger Grant. 3 attempts, 2 under Mayor Littlefield's administration. We had 9 city councilmen who voted unanimously to go for the grant. During the time the administration was applying for the Tiger Grant, I, along with other citizens, asked the question: 1, what is Plan B in the event the city is not awarded the grant? Seemingly all felt sure we would be awarded the grant. The second question: what are we doing differently than the past administration, as they were denied the same grant twice? We are crossing our I's and dotting our T's. Also, we are in communication with the Department of Transportation and with Councilman Chuck Fleischman. That was what we received. The grant request for $27 million, with the city requiring a match of $25 million. That was $2 million short of being a dollar-for-dollar match. Still, the city was denied for the 3rd time. I say again, we have been patient. Even during a meeting at Brainerd Recreation Center last year regarding the possibility of a Walmart community market located at the corner of Shelford Road and Moore Road, citizens asked, what about the traffic congestion we are currently facing in this area? We received a response: we'll be all right. Please understand, continued promises, piecemeal work is simply not acceptable. We have been patient. The most recent list of repairs suggested by this administration will not address all the safety concerns posed by this community, nor will it prevent the traffic congestion users face day to day. We respectfully ask this administration and city council members to consider the following suggestions. 1, if the proposed repairs does not offer passage for EMS, Carter, county school buses, and bring a better air quality to a safe level, why continue to waste taxpayer dollars in piecemeal work? Let's agree to immediately close the tunnel to public use until such time as the safety concern can be addressed and needed repairs will not place a burden on the city budget. 2, city administration form a committee such as they have present today. Allow the community to form a similar committee. This group will be charged with the development of an immediate, short, and long-term plan, including a reasonable time frame for all work to be completed. We are asked that both suggestions be considered and that the North Branch Community Council be provided feedback from this administration by April the 13th as your thoughts. On behalf of the residents of Chattanooga, Hamilton County, and the North Branch Community Council, thanks for your time and the opportunity for the citizens to bring these concerns to you.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We're going to see if at this time council persons may have questions. All right. I don't believe we see any. Did you? Okay, we have no questions, do we? Okay. Thank you all very much. Okay. Now, as the first panel for the our internal experts comes forward, let me at this time express appreciation to the administration for making these individuals available. There's a lot of background information they put together and shared with us, and so we want to thank you. We want to thank our own staff of the City Council who've worked very hard to make this a success. And ladies and gentlemen, this would not be a success without you being here. You make this a success. We want to thank you for that. And I believe, Mr. Goldberg, you have some comments?
Well, if you're ready for the city's presentation, I
We
would
are.
do an introduction for that. All right.
We are.
Thank you, Council. We welcome the opportunity to highlight the efforts of the Burke administration to achieve improvements to the Wilcox Tunnel that have gone undone for many, many years. Today, we've asked Transportation, Public Works, and Regional Planning Agency staff to present a history of the tunnel, to explain what we know about the tunnel's condition and needs, and to explain what our plans are moving forward. You asked us to help the council achieve the following items, and we agree with these goals. To inform the community of our work on the tunnel, to build trust with the community on this issue, and to provide the community with a better understanding of the efforts the city has made to improve the situation relating to the tunnel. So today you're going to hear from the Administrator of Transportation, Blythe Bailey, our city engineer and internal historian for this project, Bill Payne, as well as Ewan Lee and Melissa Taylor from the Regional Planning Agency. With this presentation, I'm confident that everyone in this room will learn something about the tunnel. Well, except for maybe not Councilman Gilbert. He's worked on this thing for so long. The bottom line is this. Mayor Burke's administration, working with council, is doing more for this tunnel than the city's done in over 50 years. We are doing things differently. We are fixing the tunnel. This is the culmination of months of work based on previous studies, based on personal visits to residents' houses, knocking on their doors, speaking with them, and a great deal of work by our Transportation and Public Works departments. When we're finished, we will have a safe, clean, attractive tunnel that, while not perfect, will be in a better condition with significant improvements over what has been done for many decades. We're excited about this project. We're looking forward to making these improvements in the short term while we continue to strive for partnerships with state or federal agencies to address the situations on a longer term basis. With that, I'll introduce Mr. Blythe Bailey.
What we're going to ask is that those three persons, if they would come to the table, please. Four. Well, we're going to come up with another chair. You go ahead and sit. Mr. Tansel? Is he? Okay. We need to get here he is. We need to get one more chair. Right there. Oh, you have one? Okay, all right. Okay. Come, please. Okay. Please, Ewan. You may have to share mics. Please go right ahead, sir.
It appears I may have to. In a previous life, I was a coach, so I'm gonna make hand gestures for Mr. Dan up there to.
If you would, one moment. Can you hear Mr. Bailey? Okay.
Test. Okay.
Yes, sir.
If I move away, just let me know.
Yes, sir.
I hope everyone in the audience will pardon my motions. I believe the computer is under the desk behind
question?
me. So I'll be making motions of some kind.
If you would, please, just one moment. Councilperson Freeman.
Mr. Chairman, if you will, there are some presenters who are going to present an overhead projector presentation, and they would need to see it in order to continue to show it. So with your permission, would you allow them to do it from the podium, so as they normally would any other presentation that's a overhead projector?
Are you all incapable of doing it from here, from the table?
It's fine, whatever
Oh,
suits,
you
whatever's
have
the
it.
pleasure of the council.
You have it on the screen. All right. If you would, please go right ahead, sir.
And thank you, Councilman Hakeem, and all the rest of the members of the council for giving us this opportunity. Mr. Goldberg said a lot of the things that I was going to say on the first slide, so I'll try to ad-lib a little bit and add a couple of things. But I will say that one of the very first conversations that I had with Mayor Burke when I took this job was within days of taking this job. He stressing to me the importance in moving forward by putting the myriad plans and studies behind us and focusing on action and making real improvements to the tunnel. It's been a major part of my work personally as the administrator of this department, both writing and working with project managers to complete grants and work on the alternative plan that we've been working on continuously for several months. Back in the fall of 2013, I volunteered my time with about 4 or 5 other staff members from my department and dozens of other individuals, including, if I remember correctly, Councilman Mitchell and Councilman Gilbert, walking the doors, walking the neighborhoods on both sides of the ridge, knocking on doors, and asking folks in the community, what's the most important thing associated with the Wilcox Tunnel? How can we make it better? I'll go to the, that's good. That's good, Dan. If you could go back one, please. Let me mention also that this is good timing, Mr. Councilman. Right now, there is an advertisement in the newspaper for us to complete work on improvements on the tunnel. We've been working on this with consultants. As you all may recall, last July, you approved expenditures to hire those consultants to work through construction documents to prepare to fix the tunnel that we have now. We've been working on that, and it's advertised to bid now. We plan to open those bids in several weeks and get to work in the spring. The tunnel was first constructed out of wood forms and buckets of concrete. As an architect in my previous trade, I can say this is a pure structural form. It's an arch. It's one of the most reliable structural forms in the history of man. Due to the growth of the city to the east, the city and county funded and pushed for the construction of this new tunnel in the late 1920s. As Mr. Shireen indicated, at over 80 years old, the Wilcox Tunnel is the oldest one in our city. It's the only one, also as mentioned, that is controlled and owned by the city. All others are TDOT owned. State routes, and as such, are a little more shielded from political cycles. For some perspective, we did a little research on the state-controlled tunnels. There's 3 tunnels, and based on the average amount of funding that the State Department of Transportation offers for maintenance of those tunnels, they spend about $44 a lineal foot per year on those tunnels. If you factor all of the work that we've done, and that's both work that we've done and also work that we've almost done but pulled back to do more studies, we spend almost twice that amount per year on maintenance of the tunnel. There's been no lack of resourcefulness or creativity. As you can see in the newspaper clipping on the top left, we at one time injected silicone into the tunnel to help improve water intrusion and try to stop leakage. We've also from time to time replaced and repaired lighting and done a number of other things on the tunnel. As city engineer, I'll just hand it over to Bill here. Since 2006, Bill's overseen substantial engineering analyses and substantial engineering analyses and improvements on the tunnel. Bill's been with the city for 25 years, and he'll shed more light on what has and hasn't been done to the tunnel over the course of about the last 25 years.
Thank you very much. Go right ahead, sir.
Thank you very much for that. When we talk about recent history, the slides that I'm going to go through are going to provide a detailed picture of things that have happened generally from the time frame of 1987 through 2011. During that time, we have performed a complete engineering investigation. There have been 4 different reports. Each has built successively on issues that were either highlighted or raised during the prior reports. In general, they provide a picture of structural analysis, geotechnical, drainage, as well as vehicle and pedestrian safety and access. We'll also, throughout, talk about things that have been either repaired or modified through the tunnel or been considered during that time. In the late 1980s, the city went out and developed several budgetary estimates for the purpose of trying to make some improvements to the tunnel. There was one for nearly $250,000 from a specialty contractor for repairing leaks and cracks. There was $32,000 estimated for painting, $25,000 estimated for handrail improvements, and approximately $90,000 for lighting improvements. In 1989, TDOT began an inspection of their state-owned tunnels inside the city, and the city followed suit in order to inspect the Wilcox Tunnel. The scope of this first report and investigation was to look at basic structural evaluations, as well as lighting assessment and vehicular and pedestrian safety. So in 1991, City Council authorized Hensley Smith, a local engineering firm, to perform an engineering report and evaluation in the amount of $18,500. That report, as you heard earlier, details the fact that the entire tunnel width is 24 feet total. There's 3 feet of that that's allocated for pedestrians, leaving 21 feet for vehicles. However, the effective width at that time for vehicles was really only 17 feet, and that has to do with the fact that the tunnel is an arch, and so there is only you can only get so close to the walls without the vehicles impacting the arch. Let's go back one slide, please. The roadway surfaces were concrete. They appear to be original. There was some cracking and scaling as well as a worn and slick surface. And they measured the posted clearances at the eastern end at 10 feet 10 inches and on the western end at 14 feet 2 inches. On those approaches, on the roadways coming to both of the portals, there were object marker signs that were there to let people know there was a large object that was at that point, but there were no other safety devices such as guardrails or other types of safety measures that were in place to keep someone from hitting it at a bad angle. The eastern approach is about 6%. The western approach is about 5%. So those are somewhat steep. They also noted that at the time Carter was running the Cromwell route approximately every 40 minutes through the tunnel. Carter was not having any accidents reported at that particular time. However, for school buses, Chattanooga City Schools were operating still at that point in time. They were advising their drivers to avoid the Wilcox Tunnel, and they were using Greenwood as a regular route. The sidewalk, as we mentioned, is 3 feet in width. It was about 9 inches above the top of the roadway surface, and the only thing separating vehicles and pedestrians at that time was a pipe and chain handrail system, which essentially was a vertical pipe about every 5 feet, and about at 2.5 inches in height, there was a chain that connected from one pipe to the next. There was a traffic accident analysis that was reviewed all of the accidents that had happened. There were not any identifiable weather correlations in that review. All of the accidents were either side swipes or rear end collisions. Side swipes were attributed primarily to the narrowness of the lanes of the tunnel, and the rear end collisions generally occurred in the westbound direction towards Avondale, which is downhill, and they were attributed to either the steepness of the tunnel or the steepness and the alignment of the intersections on the west side. There was a visual geotechnical inspection that was completed, but there was not any subsurface investigations of the soils or the rock. They noted that there were some steep excavation slopes from the original construction, and there's rock that's visible and present on the western side. It's all soil on the eastern side. As far as structural of the tunnel liner itself, there were 9 holes that were drilled for sampling, 3 near the eastern portal, 2 about at the midpoint of the tunnel, and 4 near the western portal. Those were taken in a variety of the walls, the ceiling, and the floor, and they ranged in compressive strength from 5,000 to 8,000 pounds per square inch. There was also noted a horizontal crack in the north wall. It did not appear to be new at that particular time. And looking at it, Hensley Smith determined that it was not considered a structural hazard for the tunnel. You'll hear more about that in one of the later reports, and we'll talk about that, and that it was there as part of the construction. There were leaks, and the joints where each panel, as the tunnel was built, the panel was built in successive. They would excavate a short section anywhere from 6 to 12 feet or so, and then pour concrete up against the forms for that. And so at each one of those, where each one of those panels joined together, is a construction joint, and those are the primary source of water infiltration. There are some steel drain pipes that are present, but many of them had corroded and prevented normal drainage. However, those leaks were not posing any sort of structural problem. However, they did note that attempts to restrict the seepage by preventing it completely would increase water pressure acting on the tunnel, and the tunnel was not designed to resist any sort of high water pressure on the back, because that could result in some structural damage. So they recommended channeling the water appropriately. The existing lighting in 1991, they noted that the original tunnel construction from the 30s had recessed wall-mounted fixtures that were actually recessed into the panel. They had been replaced at some point by suspended fixtures. We believe that was probably in the early 80s. They noted the presence of 90 fixtures throughout the tunnel itself. They were 150-watt high-pressure sodium lights. So coming out of this report, the major recommendations were to do a thorough cleaning and painting of the tunnel itself with an epoxy coating, install new lighting with 5 different zones. They recommended 240 fixtures of the same size bulbs that were present. They recommended widening the traffic lanes by removing the sidewalk because of liability concerns about the pedestrians and overhanging mirrors in that section, as well as installing some concrete protection along the lower tunnel walls to prevent vehicles from running directly into the tunnel liner itself. They recommended milling off or removing about 1.5 inches of the existing concrete pavement and overlaying that with some asphalt, as well as installing guardrails and height restrictors. That estimated cost was $564,295. So coming out of that report, in 1994, the City Council passed a resolution to enter into an agreement with Electric Power Board in the amount of $150,000 for 92 fixtures at 400 watts of high-pressure sodium. So they're 3 times the amount of power and illumination of the lights that were in the tunnel at that time. So even though there were fewer fixtures than what Hensley Smith had recommended, they were 3 times as powerful, and that work was completed in August through September of 1994. In 1994, the Public Works Department conducted a 1-day pedestrian study. During that daylight to dark study, they observed 4 recreational users that came through the tunnel. 3 of them said that they used the tunnel less than once per week and all had other means of transportation. So the Public Works Department implemented a trial sidewalk closure in order to determine what the impacts of closing the sidewalk for a period of time would be.
Mr. Payne, it's very enlightening, the information you're sharing with us. We did want to, at some point, get to the other panelists and then afford citizens an opportunity to address us within the timeline that we have. If you would give some consideration to compressing your comments, we'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir. There was an accident review that looked at before and after the lighting upgrade and determined that there had been no accidents in 6 months after the lighting upgrade, and so because of that, the sidewalk was reopened and the decision was made to defer the lane widening, and so the sidewalk was left in place. Also in 1995, there was a contract awarded by the City Council to make repairs to the pavement, install guardrails at the western side, as well as installing a new pedestrian handrail system, which is the one that's in place today, which is a concrete wall with a steel handrail on top. Then in 2003, there was an additional scope that was looked at, which was to look at the drainage investigation, look at the ventilation and the air quality inside, or not the air quality, but look at the ventilation of the tunnel itself, as well as looking at future tunnel concepts. So that was authorized by council in the amount of $25,000 to Consolidated Technologies or CTI. Those posted clearances that we talked about earlier had not changed. However, CARTA was beginning to report mirrors were being damaged by either oncoming traffic or the northern tunnel wall. But overall, the vehicle accident rate was reduced since those improvements had been made in the 90s. When we look at ventilation, there was no mechanical ventilation system, and there was not any air quality testing that was performed as part of this contract. Structurally, they looked at interim conclusions, and the horizontal crack that I mentioned earlier was determined to be a construction joint where portions of the concrete had been poured while it was being filled. And so it confirmed that crack that runs along the northern wall is not a structural hazard. They performed 17 core samples and some shallow soil borings along the tunnel floor, and found that the rock foundations in the western portion of the tunnel had been trenched into bedrock, and that there were concrete struts or beams that had to be used on the eastern end where the soil was present. When they looked at the sidewalk, it was determined that it was not possible to make modifications to the existing sidewalk that would be compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act without limiting the tunnel to vehicles, or without limiting vehicles to only one lane. However, CARTA was willing to provide no-cost transportation service through the tunnel on their existing routes, but that a new bus stop would be needed near the western portal. There were some recommendations about drainage and a new drainage system, as well as installing, again, when the sidewalk was removed, installing that same additional concrete protection. This effectively would give a 12-foot lane width, which is based on a 96-inch or 8-foot wide CARTA bus with a maximum height of 10 feet 7 inches.
Okay. Mr. Payne, I believe a lot of the information you're sharing with us was in a report that was sent to us by administration dealing with the tunnel as a whole. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to ask you, if you would, please, I'll use the term, to get to the end of that report so that we can hear the other presenters.
Okay. Excuse me, Mr. Councilman, if I may. I just want to be clear what the request is. We were asked to prepare a presentation for the first hour of this public hearing, and that's what we've done.
Okay, well, you were misinformed. What was said was that each presenter, as far as staff persons, would be 7 to 8 minutes. And then, if council person had questions, then they would those questions would be answered. I don't know where you get your information from, but it wasn't from me. It wasn't from the committee meeting that we had. Okay?
Do you want us to discontinue presenting?
I would like for you to have a seat, sir, so that we can continue.
Well,
now,
we'll
you want to be disruptive, but we're not going to allow that to happen. Now, I have asked for a process. We have a process in place. You want to be disruptive, but we're not going to permit that, sir. Thank you. Please have a seat. Please.
I just want to be clear on who
please
is
have a
presenting
seat,
next.
sir. I've already outlined it to you. It's in writing that
I have the email you sent me.
Sir?
I have the email that talks
And
about
it said a
presentation.
presentation for an hour. You want to, we're not going to go there. Thank you, Mr. Payne, for your comments. I didn't know which of you ladies were going to make a comments at this time. Okay.
So we can go back.
Is this loud enough? Yeah? Okay. My name is Melissa Taylor. I'm the Director of Strategic Long-Range Planning.
Try another mic, if you would.
What about now? Okay, that's good. Again, my name is Melissa Taylor. I'm the Director of Strategic Long-Range Planning for the Regional Planning Agency. And I apologize to the administration. We were trying to have a fluid presentation, but my slides are late because I was sick yesterday. So I just wanted to apologize for sliding these in at the last minute.
Okay.
The planning agency, and especially my department, works on two aspects of planning that's related to the Wilcox area. Land use planning, we do that countywide, and then transportation planning, which a bulk of which we provide to the Transportation Planning Organization. That covers 11 jurisdictions in Hamilton County and 8 in North Georgia. The existing planning that we've done, I kind of wanted to show this in context of some other work that we're doing. We've been working on Growing Forward, which is an update to the comprehensive plan, and some re-looking at neighborhood land use plans. So I wanted to show it in the context here, but you can barely see there's a red circle there in the middle, and that represents the Wilcox Tunnel. The planning that we've provided related to that area is the 1998 Eastdale Plan and the 2010 Eastdale North Brainerd Assessment. So one was adopted, as you see there in parentheses, and the other is just an assessment that the staff at the planning agency went back and looked at what all had been done in the area. The 2004 Avondale Plan, which was also adopted, our 2040 Regional Transportation Plan, which was adopted in 2014, and it's not shown here on the map because it covers a greater area, and then the 2014 Growing Forward project that I already mentioned. For our TPO, or our Transportation Planning Organization projects, these are covered in our Regional Transportation Plan. No projects that we put forward for the TPO can be acted upon or funded unless they go through that planning process. So what I did was pull out, and that's federally funded, so clarification there in case folks are not familiar with the coverage of the Transportation Planning Organization. It is federal funding, except with respect to regional transportation projects. And as you see here, there are two projects in the Wilcox area. One is Project ID 64. That is the second to considered as a future project anticipated for completion by the year of 2030 to provide additional lanes for multimodal traffic. And the other is to add a bike lane on Roanoke and Glass Street. That's Project ID 161. So if you go to that document, you'll see that those have future funding associated with them in the Wilcox area. Not shown on the map is a transit study for passenger rail feasibility, which Mr. Bailey spoke about earlier in terms of the Tiger Grant. We also provide for the process by which these projects are funded or that are considered for funding in the future. And so this is a table of the two most used funding programs that could provide potential eligibility for this project or projects that do come through the TPO. As you see there, Surface Transportation Program, that's STP money. It can be utilized through our TPO process for dedicated funding that comes to our TPO for a competitive evaluation process of projects, or can be used by the state for a vast array of projects. Also is the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program. I know that there have been air quality related elements spoken about in terms of the tunnel, and I have not explored the possibility of whether that program, but in light of being asked about potential funding sources, I wanted to provide it in case there is enough information from an air quality standpoint that it might qualify under that program. Non-routine federal funding sources, there are two that have been spoken about in the past or that have been spoken about in relationship to other projects that the city may be working on. One is high priority project funds. Those are HPP monies. They are congressional earmarks. Currently, congressional earmarks are not available through the transportation legislation. Legislation changes frequently, and as you know, that can either rescind money or begin new types of funding programs. So those are not currently available. Discretionary programs like Tiger, there are others that may be unknown at this time because they are not part of our TPO process, but they could be looked into. So I do not have an exhaustive list of those other discretionary programs. They also happen through a competitive process and are often an agreement between the organization and the USDOT directly. I have a packet of handouts. If anyone at the end of the meeting is interested in some of this information, it goes into greater detail and provides links on our website. So if you need, it also has my contact information.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ms. Yuen Lee?
Yes, I'm waiting for the slide that was embedded into their slide. So,
Okay. Why don't you try the mic while they're getting that together?
Okay.
You need to pull it closer to you, I believe.
Can anybody hear me?
Okay.
Okay. Let me give what I'm going to talk about is explain the process. Melissa mentioned about the developing the regional transportation plan, and based on the federal requirement, we have to justify the reason why we come up with the improvement plan or the different projects. And one is to develop the transportation demand model. And the model, main thing is to help us to project the future traffic volume and see how many traffic will go through, and then come up with the reason and why we need to widen the road or new road, or right now it's actually more to come up with some what we call the alternative transportation projects, like how encourage people to take on the bus or do other things instead of just driving. And one of the major input to the model is based on the future population and also the future employment and also the school enrollment. The last model with this was the 2040 model, and we come up with the projection for the population. Yeah, this one here. And yeah, that's right, just stay on this one. And I mean, we are planning, we are not really a population expert on the projection, so we come up with a lot of help on that, come up with the projection. It's like we look at the Woods and Poole projection. That one is a well-known consulting firm. They provide us projection for a lot of city and state and regionals and most of the TPO organization and planning agency think that is the Bible, and then we adopt that projection. And also we review the projection based on the Tennessee State Data Center, and also we review this population census. And also, I mean, because we know when we developed this model, that was around 2010, and that was right after we have the Enterprise South and with the company or the Volkswagen coming in. So we know even though the other projection we got a low projection, and we can expect when I work with the advisory committee, and we all think that we should have a higher population projection, and that is why we come up with the low, mid, and high projection on that. And the advisory committee we work with is with representatives from the UTK and Chattanooga area Chamber of Commerce, and also the health department, because they are the one work closely based on how many babies are born and how many people die, so they can come up with the future population. And they are really expert on the population too. And also we work with the Northwest Georgia Regional Commission, because they are the one with we are regional transportation. We cover the North Georgia areas, the traffic coming in from all the region. And also at that time we work with the ARC Center. And so we come up and say with the number and show that within 30 years, the population grew 25%. We gained about 85,000 people. But remember, this is for the entire Hamilton County. And from that population increase, and then we allocated to the entire Hamilton County and figure out where the people will move into, where the new household there, and also with the new jobs. And then we figure out where the traffic coming from, or going to. And with that, and then we come up, can you come to the next slide? I forgot. Signal, yeah. Let's show you the next one. And show you the traffic from the 2010 to the 2020, 2030, and 2040, and showing the traffic volumes in the Wilcox Tunnel. It shows we gain about over 3,000 traffic volumes in the Wilcox area. Just to give you a comparison to how that works, and so I also include the Brainerd Tunnel and the Rango Tunnel there. This is the average daily traffic volume here. And that's
Is that it? Okay, thank you very much. Oh, you had some, go right ahead, Mr. Bailey.
Well, we had, Dan, if you could go to slide 53, and I regret that I didn't spend more time on the first slide where we had an outline of what we were presenting, but I'll be quick.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think the sort of meat of this thing is what are we doing now, and that's what's left. So,
Okay.
I do want to say, I thank Mr. Payne, who, as you all know, is extremely thorough and took a tremendous amount of time to go research and find all the information that he was presenting. This slide shows a summary of all of the work that he was going through, and certainly if anyone wants to look back at any of the information and any of the projects that we've done over the years, our doors are open. And I'll also add that we attempted to present all this information not to show that nothing needs to be done, but more to show that I think it's real easy to go through that tunnel, which is our oldest tunnel and has circumstances that a lot of us can't control, and think that nothing ever happens. And we just wanted to show, in the interest of building trust with the community, that we do work on this tunnel, and we have worked on this tunnel. That was the intention of all that information. So, Dan, if you could go ahead to number 58, I'd appreciate it. And I may skip some slides as we get to the meat of this, and I'll just throw my hand up a couple of times for you just to keep going. The two major things that remain to talk about are the Tiger Grant. I wanted to present some perspective on what the Tiger Grant is. It was a program of the recession. It stands for Transportation Investment Generating Economic Recovery. The economic impacts of the Wilcox Tunnel, as stated in our applications, are as follows. And in some respects, this is a repeat of some of the things that were said by the first panel. I won't go into those since you can see them on the slideshow, but there are tremendous economic impacts to improving that tunnel. If you go to the next slide, please, Dan. I'll just go through the scope of work as we developed this over the course of roughly 2007 to about 2011, and Mr. Payne was going to go into some of that. We developed a concept where we would do a new tunnel that would carry eastbound traffic, 2 lanes of eastbound traffic, and 1 lane of westbound traffic, with all of the amenities of a modern-day complete street, bike facilities, sidewalks that are plenty wide enough, ventilation and evacuation corridor, improvements to the roads on the approach from the east and the west side. It's a pretty good plan. The initial grant application called for about a $50 million project. And then it's gone up a little bit due to inflation and also due to some other circumstances that we've worked out through design. We have paid consultants, Halpro, who was bought by CH2M Hill, approximately $2 million to do the engineering work for this project. That might seem like a lot of money for a bunch of drawings, but when you consider that it's a $50 million project, that's a percentage that equates to about 35% design. We've applied for that Tiger Grant and intend to apply for it again. Because of the aforementioned economic benefits to the communities, and because we think that this is extremely important for the city of Chattanooga and the communities on either side of the ridge. Just a quick section. This is the old tunnel on the left, and the new tunnel proposed on the right with an emergency egress cross passage, so that if anything happened, you could get out of there safely. We've got several slides here to kind of give the perspective. I'll go through 2 of them and then I'll skip the rest of them. When Tiger was originated in 2009, you can see the spread. $59 billion worth of projects were applied for. 1.5 billion were awarded. That's about a 2.5% success rate. You can see the breakdown in costs of projects that were awarded for projects where the grant request was over $20 million. Their success rate was 57%. in just the next year, go ahead and go to the next one, Dan. In Tiger 3, you can go to the next one. In Tiger 4, you can see that projects that were requesting a grant of over $25 million had a 0% success rate. 4% in that year of projects by dollar were awarded. So that's just to say that the Tiger grant process, as you can imagine, is an extremely competitive process. Tiger 5 was the one that we applied for within 4 weeks of me taking this job. And then Tiger 6 was what we applied for last year, so this upcoming one presumably will be Tiger 7. We did an analysis of all of the projects. We just picked 2013. We did this prior to submitting our last Tiger grant, and we did a spread. We basically classified each of the projects based on type. Bike ped projects, which is pretty obvious, sidewalk projects and bike facility projects, complete streets projects, which is a category for changing the whole landscape of a neighborhood so that streets work better for all kinds of people and also frame neighborhoods and build up neighborhoods. Freight and port is it's a basic infrastructure, extremely important from an economic development standpoint. Roadway, bridge, tunnel, what we call heavy infrastructure, and transit rail. You can see that transit rail and freight port are the majority of the winners. It seems as though the conventional heavy infrastructure is downplayed, and if you go to the next slide, you'll see a few. Felt like it was appropriate to show a couple of examples of Tiger projects that were awarded. This is what we would call a heavy infrastructure project. It was awarded, I think, largely because it's a defense connector. It connects to a naval shipyard. Another heavy infrastructure project where there was a clear structural deficiency that needed to be repaired. Complete Streets project that was funded. The Atlanta Streetcar Project, a rail project to get people around in a new way with trains, is also funded in the Tiger grant process. And I'll go through these slides fairly quickly. We work hand in hand with the Public Works Department on maintenance. One of the things that Councilman Gilbert suggested early on was, why don't you just go in there and scrub it with soap and a scrub brush and see if you can make it cleaner? And it seemed like a good idea before we go spend $52 million. Maybe just clean it and see if it looks better. We went in, closed the tunnel during one of our regular quarterly maintenance terms and scrubbed it with scrub brush and soap, and we videoed it. It did make it better, but in the grand scheme of things, there's enough water intrusion there where there's some mold, and we feel like it actually needs a new coating if we can expect for it to be clean consistently. This is a video I'll skip. At one point, we tried this machine that we call the Cat in the Hat machine. This looks like something out of Dr. Seuss. It goes in and cleans off the walls. Same thing. The concrete is porous and has carbon embedded past the surface, so it's really hard to get that concrete surface clean. And so we think if it's going to ever look good again, we'll need to put a new coating on it. Lighting, it was mentioned, I think, by all three panelists, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Taylor, and Mr. Shereen. Lighting is bad in that tunnel. Mr. Payne pulled up an analysis that we did in the 90s where we did traffic analysis before and after a lighting change and showed that there was significant improvement in traffic safety. We intend to change out the lighting as part of this project. That's out for advertisement right now for construction to repair this tunnel right now this spring. Also something that's mentioned by everyone, and again, when I walk the neighborhood and knock on the doors with others, that was one of the things that they said first. You've got to fix the water problem. It's unsightly, causes mold on the side of the tunnel, and it's dangerous because it means that water drips on people's cars and puts water on the roadway. We've developed a couple of solutions. This is one that the Public Works Department tried. We basically create a gutter. We really want to channel that water so it doesn't stay above the concrete. So the idea was that each one of those expansion joints where the water is supposed to come through, we put this gutter in that channels that water to the outside. We have a solution that's in our documents that will be included in the work where we're going to cut a kerf along the tunnel every so often, put a gasket in that will capture that water and channel it to the outside. That'll keep down the dripping of water down on cars. We have asked TDOT on a number of occasions. I tried to sneak it in, and I was unsuccessful. They're basically saying they will not, and there is no procedure in place for them to take over this tunnel so they can maintain it just like they do all the others. We've tried and we'll continue to try to see if TDOT will help us with this tunnel, but as of right now, it's our responsibility, the city's. CARTA, as has been said, did go through the tunnel previously. Buses have gotten wider and wider. I wish we could control that. The company that makes our buses, Gillig, recently made a new version of buses that's about 12 inches wider than they were before, so it just means that they just can't go through that tunnel as it is now. We do have routes actually that pick up folks a lot of the ways around the ridge, so in some respects the alternative route sometimes serves some of those folks better, but obviously if we could take buses through the tunnel, it would improve ridership.
All right, if you would.
This is the results of our walking the neighborhood and knocking on doors. I won't repeat it all, but I'll go to the next slide, which kind of shows what the lights and the water ring true. This is the last few slides. We intend to improve the way the tunnel looks on approach. We're going to put in new landscaping and talking to the folks in public art. They have a new program, and we've worked with some of the folks in the neighborhood to develop an art piece. There is a program, and I think Donna is here to give more information on that program. It's called Art in Neighborhoods, whereby neighborhoods can go after grant funding to put art in. And that's one of the things that Councilman Gilbert has suggested along the way as well. The tunnel as it is, the dim light, the existing walls are dirty, moisture and ponding, road surface is old and in need of repair, and the existing railing is in poor condition. All of those issues we are dealing with right now in the project that we are out to bid on. And this is what we plan for the tunnel to look like when we're finished before the end of calendar year 2015.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. I want to express great appreciation to all of you. You're very thorough, and we appreciate it very much. Mr. Payne, I know how thorough you are, sir. I would hope you, knowing me, understand that it was nothing personal toward you, but we're trying to move this process forward. I believe we have some questions from councilpersons. Councilperson Chair Henderson.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Payne, I heard the comment from one of the panelists, and then I think in one of the slides you alluded to the air quality concerns and the need for ventilation. And I visited this tunnel and then in other tunnels as well, but is there something different about this tunnel that would require a different ventilation system than the other tunnels that we have around the city? And what are the plans for, I guess, creating better air quality in the tunnel?
To my knowledge, there's not any mechanical ventilation system in any of the other tunnels either. This one is the longest, to my knowledge, of the ones inside Chattanooga. In 2004, Air Pollution Control Bureau did an analysis of pedestrian transit times as well as vehicle transit times to determine whether or not there were any conditions in which it would be either a violation of the Clean Air Act or any hazard for a pedestrian in the tunnel. And basically, they concluded that the existing tunnel in its current configuration, as well as what was proposed at the time, which is very similar to what Mr. Bailey has laid out today, would not create a situation that causes a violation of the Clean Air Act. So you'd have to stay in the tunnel for an exceedingly long period of time with no air movement at all. And there are three natural mechanisms of ventilation through the tunnel. One is the vehicles that pass through. The other is prevailing wind patterns in the area. And then the third just has to do with daily temperature fluctuations cause warm air to rise, cool air to sink, and those things do provide some ventilation to move through. But even if none of those three were present, air pollution determined that you would have to stay in the tunnel, I think 10 times longer than it takes to walk through the tunnel, or longer before you would even begin to get close to a violation of health standards.
So as far as the pedestrian traffic going through, I don't want to say a concern, but in other words, there's not a significant risk then to pedestrians that would be passing through. And I get I guess the follow-up is the length of the tunnel that causes this the poor ventilation, I guess. Is that correct?
I don't necessarily know that it creates any poor ventilation. It's just the length of it just creates a longer period of time that both vehicles and pedestrians are inside the tunnel, and so for that reason it's longer, and so it is a factor in that, but it's not necessarily it's not causing the problem with ventilation. All the others just happen to be shorter because of where they're at geographically.
I've got a couple of follow-up, but I'll yield to other councilperson.
Councilperson Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks everyone today who came up and spoke, and thanks this great crowd today who, I did walk the neighborhoods and met some great people who had the concerns. But I want to help me review here for just a second, Mr. Bailey. It looks like from what you showed us, the Tiger Grant is moving away from traditional fundings of tunnels and things like that to more rail-type transit and studies. They're not giving as much money to grants as they did originally. Is that correct?
I'd have to go back and look at the numbers to see if that last statement is true, that the actual award is going down. I don't know that to be the case.
Plus 25 million went to zero the last 3 times.
Oh, well, that was just the allocation of awards to projects that had a grant request of 25 million or more. That wasn't a reflection of necessarily the total amount of award.
What was our grant application amount?
Our grant application has varied between 25 and about 27.
Okay. So we can say, based on that information, that at least the direction the current administration is going in, we probably won't be awarded this grant through Tiger.
Like I was saying, that when you just look at the numbers, there's about an average of about a 2 to 3 to 4% success rate with the Tiger Grant, and that's because lots of
Your mic.
Sure.
Your mic.
Sorry.
I understand. And I believe, Ms. Taylor, you said earmarks aren't happening right now, which is another form of federal funding to fund a project this massive size.
To my knowledge, that is correct in the transportation legislation. They removed what they called earmarks and high priority project funding from the MAP 21 transportation legislation. Now, there is new legislation up, and I have seen some correspondence recently, but have not spent the time on it to determine whether or not whether there is any indication that they are coming back.
But we're going to continue to try to search it at the federal level. I understand that. That's not a question. That's a statement. Seems like the state's staying off the hook pretty well, too, as far as trying to help us as far as TDOT's concerned. I guess because it's our tunnel, it's our responsibility, and maybe the state doesn't feel that responsibility, even though I agree with some earlier comments of former Councilman Taylor that it's a federal road, and I personally take it from the airport to where I live all the time. So it's a critical road for me and my family also. The last thing I'll say is if we were to try to take this on our own as a city, a 50-something million project, and you folks probably aren't the right people to answer this, but what would be the impact of the city's budget to try to do that, which is the right thing to do, I agree, but what would be the impact of the city's budget?
We'll get that information along with some other questions that are going to be asked, if it's acceptable to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Councilperson Gilbert.
I do want to thank everybody that came today. Thank both panels that came and expressed their opinions. I can't speak for 1990 when City Council started and what they had then, what they was going to do, but I can speak for what's happening now. When Mayor Burt came into office and Blight later on, the first thing I asked him, I said, we did not receive that Tiger Grant. What can we do to do what we can do on the existing tunnel? He said, Russell, we're going to keep applying for it, but we do need to do something with this other old tunnel. We need to fix it, but we need to actually go around and find out what do the people want to see. When we went around, I want a new tunnel too. When we went around and asked, the same thing that the panel said, the first panel came up here and spoke, it's the same thing they said. We want the water to start coming down, keep the ice from off the street. We want the lighting to be better, the interior, the exterior need to be looking better than what it is. So I think everybody's on the same accord on that end. In the past, I can't speak of how much money was used. I know Mr. Shireen mentioned about patching, but I think we're going to spend $1 million as far as fixing it, not necessarily patching it, and I appreciate that. I hope that we will get the Tiger Grant. Yeah, it looks slim, but I feel like we need to keep on pushing for that tunnel, for the new tunnels, as much as possible. I think that what we are going to do with this tunnel is helpful. It looks a lot better than what it is currently, especially to fix the water problem and the lighting. I do want to thank Councilman Hakeem for putting this together, and I really want to thank the administration. Now, one of the meetings that I was in, it was stated they wanted the history of the tunnel. And Councilman Hakeem and myself, and I think all of us know how detailed this young man gets, Mr. Payne, and we appreciate it because you did go over in detail of the history of that, some of the things I did not know about this tunnel, and I appreciate that. At the end of the day, I think bottom line is everybody want to hear what we just shown, what we're going to do about this tunnel. The bottom line is that they want to hear is how we're going to try to get this grant money in the future. So we have stated that, how we're going to put that together. We're going to keep pushing forward, and I do appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much. Councilpersons, if you would, I know Councilperson Anderson had his light on. I would ask that we give consideration to affording some time for citizens to come to the mic and express themselves. Councilperson Anderson.
I'll be brief, Chairman. I just want to say that, you know, many councils and many administrations have dealt with this issue, and I think they've all been well-intentioned, but I'm proud to be a part of a city council that will fund what is needed to repair this tunnel and replace it, and I'm proud to work with an administration that sees the need and is already going forward. And with that, I yield.
Thank you, sir. Councilperson Chairman Henderson.
Thank you, sir. I'll try to be brief as well. Mr. Bailey, and maybe I overlooked it in the presentation, when are the actual repairs going to start to the tunnel? As far as lighting, resurfacing, the channels that you were talking about to improve the water leakage? I thought maybe in your presentation we'd have a timeline as far as when all the repairs are going to start.
I had that information in my haste to make my words concise. I think I left it off, and I'll find it if I'm wrong. But as I said, it's out to bid right now. We open bids, and you know, the more bidders, the better. We open bids in roughly about a month. Open bids in roughly about a month, and that's on our city website. Go to cityofchattanooga.gov and purchasing.
In March.
Yes, sir. We open them in about March. We're anticipating this taking less than a year, and that's the schedule.
So as soon as bids are open, then they can begin the work.
Well, generally speaking, there's a number of weeks to negotiate and finalize the contract, but for the most part, when we open bids and identify a presumed winner of the bid, we go to work getting them mobilized to start work.
Councilwoman Burrs.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for having these hearings, and I think what I'm really impressed about are the neighborhood people, the people that live in the area that showed up. Your voices need to be heard, and you've come over and over again, and you've done a beautiful job of showing up today. Let me tell you that we all take this very seriously. We're dealing with a number of the realities that all of the presenters have talked about. What I do know is that we are starting work on this. I was through the tunnel just the other night, riding back and forth, getting the same feelings that you got. Besides the fact that it's dark and dank and it's not well lit, there's a lot of trash along the side gutters, which seems to be the product of water runoff. It's the kind of leaves and trash that water runoff takes through. I didn't see much trash that was thrown out of cars. It seems that you take pride in your tunnel, such as it is, and you want it to be even nicer. So we may want to look at this constant runoff. I know it has to go through, whether it would be able to go through so that it doesn't scatter the small bits of garbage through the tunnel. That's something we might want to look at. That being said, I am so proud of you being here, of you speaking up. I look forward to hearing your comments, and please know that this council is listening to you. Thank you very much.
All right, Councilperson Grown.
Mr. Bailey, I believe that the city has, as we've applied for these Tiger grants over the years, we have increased the amount that the city was going to put in with the funds that we were asking for. I believe we've gone from like 8 million to 25 million. That was going to be the city contribution to this project. Do you see a time when we will increase that so that we can reduce the amount of federal money we're asking for in order for our request to be more successful? Because as much as I want to see the tunnel look better, that's all it's going to do is look better. It is not going to solve the problem that we have in terms of taking care of the transportation needs we have. Plus, we've already leveraged $7 million to improve, to try to, well, I say taking a gamble on economic development with the Tubman site, but we don't have the infrastructure to get in and out of that site. So I think we really need to look at what are priorities in this city and how we're going to increase the possibility of the city funding more of this in order to be more successful in getting any federal grant monies. And I again, want to thank you very much. I think the necessary cosmetic repairs for the tunnel are needed, and I'm looking forward to having a better looking tunnel anyway in the very near future. Thank you, sir, very much.
Mr. Bailey, thank you. There was a number of questions within that comment that I think maybe not totally under your purview. So what we're going to ask, there are questions that have been asked, and we're going to put those in writing. Our effort is to get responses to those questions. There may be questions that citizens have. We ask you, if you don't get all your comments out at the podium, put it in writing. We're going to work at getting those questions answered. And also, if you have comments that you're not able to do at the podium, if you would put that in writing, we're going to make it a part of the record for this process. So what we're going to do, city attorney is going to outline the guidelines for persons coming up to speak, and then Pastor, you can come up at that time. We're going to ask, I believe it's Ms. Sims is going to come up, and then you come up after Ms. Sims, okay? Go right ahead, sir.
Anybody wanting to speak will need to come up to the microphone so they can be heard this evening. Just address the council on matters that are within their authority today, and don't get into any vulgar, obscene language if you don't have to here, please. Also, deal with the aspect of 2 minutes as your limitation of timing here this evening, and just recognize that these folks are trying to do the best they can. Thank you.
All right, we're going to ask Ms. Sims to come up, and then Pastor, you come up after she does. And are there other persons, if you would raise your hand, who want to have comments? Okay. All right. We will afford that opportunity. Go right ahead, ma'am.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman Henderson and council members, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Miranda Sims. I'm a member of the Foxwood Heights Neighborhood Association, North Brainerd Community Coalition, and I grew up, raised and reared in Foxwood Heights. So the Wilcox Tunnel is a pivotal part of my travel. I moved home from living in Hickson to care for my parents, and when I came back to Foxwood Heights, I noticed the lack in the community from when I grew up, the economic instability of the community. And traveling through that tunnel took me to the beautiful downtown, the riverfront. I patronized the coffee shops and the art district. And as I was doing this for years, I just couldn't help but wonder, could some of that come toward the Eastdale area, North Brainerd area? And I just wanted to say, I do believe that the Wilcox Tunnel is a pivotal conduit from either end of the city. And for it to have gone this long is very baffling to me. But then, in light of the information we've received today from your group, it does shed light on technical things that maybe the average citizen might not know. However, I love this city. I was born here, raised and reared. I never lived anywhere else, which might make me a little, one-dimensional, I don't know. But I often tell visitors, about this city, but they often question me on my part of the town, well, is the city going to look to this part of the town and show it a little love? And, I couldn't always answer that question. But still being a resident of the area I grew up in. Is that a timer?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Pastor, I'm sorry. Wait. Ms. Sims, Councilwoman Burrs, I think, has a question for you. Come back to the mic, if you would, please.
I have a question in general. This group is, and I don't know whether it's you, Ms. Simpson, I can't see you because there's a camera. Okay. Mr. Shreen and Mr. Taylor and those of you who are so really well organized today, so I'm not sure who needs to answer this. The dollars that we've been applying for are federal dollars. And I'm wondering if you guys have gone as a group and talked with our congressperson, because there's a lot of influence there. Our congressperson, Mr. Fleischman, is on the Appropriations Committee. And the reason I'm saying that is that I met with him last night about this and about appropriations and this sort of thing. And we need to learn to deal with the people that represent us in office at all levels. And I don't know which one of you can answer that, but have any of you gone as a group
We're going to ask Mr.
to his
Shreen-
office?
We're going to ask Mr. Shreen if he would come up.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Sims. We appreciate it.
Hello again. We had an opportunity during the time that Congressman Fleischman was visiting our city. I think that was back during election time. And at that time, I got a call from City Council office asking myself and other community leaders to meet with him in the vacant Food Line parking lot. And at that time, he was going to tour the Wilcox Tunnel with us. I got a call shortly thereafter, probably an hour before that time, saying to meet him at Bessie Smith Hall in the front lawn. That to me was a photo op. If you want to understand Wilcox Tunnel, let's walk through Wilcox Tunnel. We couldn't do it.
I guess my question is, without dealing with past history, we can only deal with solutions. And I'm just wondering, since you all did such a fantastic presentation today, because when I spoke with him last night about this, you hadn't made this presentation, and I think that you did such a great job. I'm wondering if you should make a presentation at his office.
We would be happy to do so, but one thing I've been very adamant about is this. We elected 9 individuals to represent us, and we elected a mayor. It's not the community's position to go out and try to tell you guys how to raise money, who to talk to, who to meet. We got a city councilman, and we have a county commissioner, and that's their job, in a sense, to meet with those elected officials, such as at the state and at the federal level, and to shine a light. Now, if they need our assistance, meaning that they're going to bring that particular person to the community and allow them to come through and look at some things, certainly, I think any of us would be happy to be able to go and tour the Wilcox Tunnel. We'll go tour with Obama if we need to. But at the end of the day, we want to see some progress.
And I think, and that was eloquently said, the point is that some of us have talked about this, and I would just, you did such a good job today.
Thank you.
I would hope, since these are federal funds, because guess what? Those people at that level are elected representatives as well. whether or not you vote for people, they are the elected representatives. And I think they also are answerable. And I heard over and over again, federal funds. And I can assure you at our end and at the city's end, there's a lot of work being done. However, there's some federal responsibility too. And I was just so impressed by what you've done. I was just wondering, had you taken time to also speak to them?
Let me say, if I could, there's going to be a debriefing among
Good.
community people, and I think that can be followed up on.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. Go ahead, Pastor.
I can say mine real quick. I'm Pastor John Draper, and I live in the middle of Town Boulevard. At 2129, I have a church at 2125. And Town Boulevard is dangerous. I have been 10 wrecks. The guardrail is tore off now, and I was promised at a meeting 10 years ago that the streeting would be completed, but it stopped 100 feet from 2125 and 2129, and haven't anybody knocked on 2129 and 2125 door. Ain't nobody knocked on my door. I want you to know, but I want the tunnel, I'm going to say little because it's been good said. I want the tunnel to look like East Ridge Tunnel and Macaulay Tunnel, and I believe we have been discriminated against if it don't look like that.
Thank you, sir. All right, I believe I saw a hand over here, if you will, please.
My name is Edward Green, Jr. I live at 4101 Gale Drive. I was born and raised in Chattanooga. I got my first automobile in 1968. I had my first accident in the Wilcox Tunnel. Last year, 2014, I had my last accident in the Wilcox Tunnel. All we asking for is inclusiveness. We have been asking for that. I am now 63 years of age. It has been 50 years that the Wilcox Tunnel has not changed. In the winter, you can go through the tunnel, and when you come out on the west end, you hit a sheet of ice. You don't know where your car's going. There is no excuse for the road to be downgraded the way that it is. The only thing we're asking for, and I thank you so very much, Mr. Yusef Hakeem, because this is the first time that the transparency has showed up. And this is all we've been asking for years. Is that let us come to the table and give us some transparency. Don't give us a bunch of statistics. Give us the results of what you're going to do with the money that you wasted. You wasted a whole lot of money in 50 years. You wasted it. And I can attest to that because I've gone through that tunnel all of my driving history, and I started when I was 16. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have, yes, another hand on this side, and then we're going to go to the other side. Thank you, sir. I apologize, panelists. If you want to sit there, that's fine. I didn't give you that option. If you want to go back to your seats, either way. Okay, it will be short anyway. Go right ahead, sir.
I'm Alan Richardson. I live at 113 Tuxedo Circle in Brainerd. And my mom, who's now 97, lived in North Brainerd for many, many years. And as she aged, she had several incidents where we required an ambulance. The ambulance went, her medical staff was at Memorial. Her ambulance took Moore Road all the way through the Brainerd Tunnel back around to Memorial Hospital. we need to think in terms of people. This tunnel involves people and their safety. Fortunately, my mother wasn't in a life or death situation, but had it been, that trip might have been the difference between life and death. And we need to keep this on the table. We don't need to let this meeting go away and come back 2 or 3 years later in the same situation. Thank you for having the hearing and for the crowd.
Thank you, sir. Okay. I believe we'll get back to you. We had a couple of hands, I believe, over on this side. Maybe not. All right, Dr. Woods. I think that's the hand I saw over there. You. Okay.
Chairman, Mr. Kellogg, too, after that.
Mr. Kellogg.
I can
Okay.
see him.
Okay,
behind him.
okay. All right, thank you.
Hi, Chairman Henderson, rest of the council, good evening, family and friends. On behalf of the NAACP, I want to just say a couple of things. One thing is that I want you all to know that we stand with you. When we think about justice in this community, and when we think about the community over in Lincoln Park, we say we need to build a highway or bring a road through there to get people to the hospital quicker and destroy the history for black folk. Now, we're saying that we're not going to build a new tunnel to get an ambulance or fire trucks to a side of town quicker to save the lives of black folk. And that's where the injustice is in this particular picture. Not only is it injustice there, but when you look at in 2009, $72 million was given to the state of Tennessee for the Recovery Act, the money for transportation. And I just can't help to wonder how many funds have come through Tennessee and in Chattanooga over the past 50 years. Just in VW site alone, how much money was used to clear that site and prepare it for VW. And also the highways and the byways and the roads and things in this city. But nothing has been done for this tunnel. And yes, it was wasted money. It's patch up. It's patching. And my people deserve better than this. And we can do better than this. So to let you all know, we stand with you. We are looking into this. And we will bring whomever we need in to investigate this and make sure that justice is served for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Mr. Kellogg.
Good afternoon. Patrick Kellogg, 2012 Sherman Street. 4 quick points. If indeed the council and this administration is saying that they are as serious in getting a resolution to the tunnel situation, 4 quick points. It is my understanding that there is a way with the state of Tennessee to be able to do a land swap. Meaning that the city gives up its rights to the tunnel and takes on a road that is owned by the state currently. That process could be utilized. However, I've not been successful in getting the details once I found out that this process is indeed something that could be in consideration. Secondly, the Wilcox Tunnel sits under Missionary Ridge, and there are definite historical significance where maybe we could go and look at the tunnel being classified under the historic register. That brings in another set of funds from the federal level. If we are believing that that tunnel is going to be funded by the Tiger Grant, then I might have some swampland in Florida to sell to you. It's not going to happen. The city owns the tunnel. It is uniquely situated in that, based on my investigation, I've not to this point found another tunnel that is in the same plight as the Wilcox Tunnel. Therefore, we have to look at the opportunity cost for disparate impact. How much do you value a life? in the event that, heaven forbid, loss of life or limb takes place. The city now knows that this is a huge problem. What we're going to do about that? And bond issue, $60 million.
Thank you.
Bond issue.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Just approved $60 million.
Come right ahead, sir.
Over 10 years.
Come right ahead. I didn't know if this gentleman was the last speaker. I didn't see it. Did I see? Okay, all right. No, just wait a moment, please. Come right here. And I would mention that we are going to have to cut it off shortly. We did have a 5 o'clock timeline on this process.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the opportunity.
If you would, please
to
give your
speak,
name.
But
if you would, please give your name for the record.
Lawrence Curry.
Okay.
2312 Wilson Street. 37406, been here a long time. A lot of people know me, a lot of people don't know me. You know now, I think I'm going to have some people to step on my feet and dislike me. Very much so. But the first thing that we need to take under deep consideration is we need a lot of work done to Wilcox Tunnel, and we need a lot of federal money. However, the federal money for Wilcox is not going to be thrown in the pot like Macaulay and Ringo Road, because we have to take it under the consideration while we are talking about Wilcox, the federal folks is still looking at Macaulay and Ringo Road due to the fact that they're highways. The money that we are looking for is going to be a long time coming, because the feds are not going to give the city of Chattanooga the money that they were giving those other two towns due to the fact they're highways. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is going through Wilcox Tunnel is a bad situation for people that are walking through that tunnel. And I know the sign said no walking and all that, but what about the people that lives on the other side? They got no other way to get home except through that tunnel. How they gonna get home? So some ways and means need to be, at this present time, fixed it, so people that live on the other side of the tunnel, that are walking through the tunnel, have access to get there without being in danger.
All right, thank you, sir. We're going to hear from the lady here, and then I think the gentleman back here, and we're going to close out.
I am Marilyn Humpert, and I live at 312 North Crest Road, and I'm one of the 3 people that will be drilled under and have dynamite blown up under my house. The area that I live on is very historic, and there was a grave found on the property next to my house, and they just had a rededication of the grave of the soldier that was found there. And also there's a monument on a piece of property that is part of the national park in front of my house. So the ground around there is hallowed ground. And I do think that if they didn't have people having to have that walkthrough, there would be more room in the tunnel. And I don't have any solutions for anything, but they want to just condemn my property that I own over the hill and give me, less than my tax money for it. And so I don't have any rights. I don't have anything to say. It's, it just happens, and I think I understand all of what you're saying, and I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Thank you for listening.
All right, thank you very much, ma'am. Sir. Okay, well, I think we might have enough time for you. Yes, ma'am. Come right ahead, sir.
Evening, everyone.
Yeah.
I talked to,
If you would, give us your name, please.
Kenneth Patton. I had talked with both of you councilmen about the idea of the Wilcox Tunnel. I talked to you about tearing it down. It needs to be torn down and build an overpass over the ridge, coming over the ridge. It needs to be tore down, make a 4-lane all the way to Chamberlain on both sides. I seen on his shots that the state is not giving the money for tunnels. They're not building tunnels. They're building bridges. I believe that's the best shot for the Tiger Grant to put at the state for a bridges, to replace that tunnel over the ridge. You might have to buy some houses, and build walls, just like you done on 27. That build walls, widen it up, and build walls in layers, like done on 27. And build a bridge across the ridge. You might have to buy out some houses. I think it needs to be studied.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. All right. Now, last speaker. Yes, ma'am. Oh, you okay? Okay. All right. Come right ahead, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Tommy Montgomery. I live at 2401 Ocoee Street. I've lived in this area over 50-some years. And my biggest concern is the waterfall that comes over the tunnel. And I noticed that Ms. Burson, she did recognize one big sign is all the leaves and the trenches that's coming down on the side of the tunnel. That's the waterfall that I'm talking about. It runs right in the heart of East Chattanooga. And our houses are being washed away with all that water that comes down through there. My second concern is safety. The trees, and I know you saw some of them in the pictures there at the tunnel, are just hanging, leaning over this way. And I have witnessed a couple of them that has fallen across the street. And I think that is so dangerous. And I really wouldn't want us to wait until we have some people killed from falling trees to just even go out and cut some of those trees and get them from hanging over the tunnel. And that's what I needed to address this afternoon. And I thank you so much for your concern.
Thank you, ma'am. The last speaker is going to be former councilperson John Taylor.
Yeah, thank you, council. And a couple of things is I just want to ask that as they start the repair, if they could give us proper signage to know that the tunnel is closed. There are many times they leave the sign up and the tunnel is open, and many times just give us proper warning when the tunnel is closed and when it is open, to turn the signs around or to cover the signs so that we know we can use the signs. And hopefully when the major work done, we'll consider working at night so that we can still keep that traffic flow, because it is very valuable. And to Councilperson Burks, want to say we'll go to whomever we need to go to, because we are serious about this tunnel.
All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, we want to express great appreciation to all of you for taking time out of your schedules to be here. Once again, our internal experts, fantastic, we thank you. And our community speakers, we thank you so much. I thank the administration and council persons for being a part of this process. With that, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry.
We still have Public Works to finish up. Public Works Committee.
All right, sir. We'll now go into Public Works. Where is he at? Oh.
Separated out.
I just want to make sure all my numbers are in order. Thank you, sir. Will do. Do it. Sure.
What's that?
That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
About that thing that has all those blank lines. I filled it in. Oh, you did? You hadn't got the update? I guess not. It's not in my folder. Yeah. I mean, they're already over there doing the work. I know. Well, they've got a Corps engineer project right upstream from them. They're probably still working on that. Oh, okay. Maybe that's what I saw. Yeah. Then. Yeah. Okay. Everything else all right? Is it on the? Good to see you.
Y'all keep up a good job.
Thanks for coming out. Thanks so much.
You got hot coffee on. Man,
you know where I'll stay.
I know where you are. I'm going to have to get over there. How's your wife?
She's doing well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So is it on the other side? Is it on the Amicola side? No, they're both on the... They're on the country club. Yeah. Ritzy side. Sugar babies over here. All right, I called you last week. There's a lady up in Lubbock City, leaves. They're right at the first of an alley, and of course we don't do alleys. But I mean, if you could get a vacuum, I'll send you an address. If you get a vacuum truck up there, you can get it in 5 minutes. It's simple. I drove up there and I'm going, I can't believe she's even worried about this amount of leaves, but she is. Was it you to ask about cleanup at the Lupton City site? Yeah, I was going to ask Bill about that, but I don't know if I'll ask him today. He's probably no, because Dennis has got a meeting set up with a guy out there later this week or next week. Okay. Or something. Get an estimate on that. Great. Thank you. Okay. Hey, John. Who do I speak to? Making sure we got the room reserved. The letters out. Invitation letters out.
I tell you, what's your name? If you just,
I'm good. How are you?
If you mind shooting me an email, you already did. Send me the dates. I'll talk to the gal front.
I'll send you something again.
If you don't mind.
No problem.
And then I'll talk to the gal front and get it reserved for you.
Great. Thanks, man.